Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to do the Fallout development timeline. I've been putting together notes, I've mentioned this before about the making of Fallout, and I think I've created a pretty definitive timeline here. So it's kind of long, it's probably going to be kind of long. There are a few pictures, but not a lot. So if you need to go get coffee or you need to go to the bathroom, do it now. Don't pause me later. I'll know if you pause me. But this is what I put together from probably like 5 years of notes, maybe a little more. Let me start a little pre-Fallout, which is important. In 1991, I started making computer tools for GURPS. I've talked about this. I made a star system generator. I made a GURPS character editor. These are all things that I just did for fun on my own time because I played GURPS and I like GURPS. I actually sent the star system generator to Steve Jackson Games and they allowed me to use the license. So I put it online and people could download it and have fun with it. I think it's still available somewhere if you want to look for it. That was 91. Now jump to middle of 93. Rags to Riches just shipped. That's my second game I made at Interplay. After it shipped, I was kind of assigned to do different things here and there. I made installers for a lot of games. I did work on Stone Keep and a few other games that were being done. But I also worked on engines. I made 3 different engines. A voxel engine that was interesting, but I'm not sure what I would have done with it. Think Minecraft. Then I made a 3D engine. It was super slow. And then I made an isometric 2D sprite engine. That's what would turn into Fallout. So now we can actually get up to talking about the making of Fallout. So in early 94, Interplay announced at a company meeting that they were looking for a tabletop RPG to license. I was super excited and I suggested GURPS. And I was playing with other people, on the Thursday night thing, and we were getting together and playing GURPS already. And I think that helped the suggestion win over the only other proposal I heard of, which was Earth Dawn. So I already had a way of getting hold of Steve Jackson Games, so I mailed them. In early March of 1994, Steve Jackson visited the studio in person. He came to Interplay. We showed him an early version of the game, basically the isometric 2D engine I had, and the GURPS character editor. We went to lunch at Disneyland at Club 33, which is later where I'd take the Fallout team when we shipped. And then that evening we sat down and played Illuminati, the Steve Jackson card game. That was really interesting because at one point he and one of the Interplay employees, Floyd Grubb, got into a rules argument and Floyd was right. That was interesting. Anyway, March 28th, 1994, I sent Steve Jackson all the latest Interplay titles to play. At this point, I'm not really sure when the contract got done. All goes on above my pay grade. Wasn't involved. However, the next note I have is June 13th, 1994. Tom Decker, Chris Taylor, and I responded to John M. Ford, the writer, his design for a nonlinear time travel GURPS computer role-playing game. I don't have the notes on that, but apparently I remember it was really wacky, and it was interesting time travel. I mean, trust me, that dinosaur time travel game I've talked about was also equally wacky. I forget exactly why we didn't go with it, but it was a little early. We hadn't even decided what genre we wanted to do. In August 24th, 1994, I made the first wish list for the project. I wanted Chris Taylor and Scott Campbell to come on as designers. I wanted Jason Taylor to do all the scripts, design, and implementation. I wanted Jesse Reynolds as an extra programmer. And as lead artist, I wrote Spencer Kipe. Spencer was another artist. I hadn't worked with him, but I think he was on Stone Keep. He'd come and play GURPS. He was the one who played the really overweight magic user that they fled and let the fire elemental eat. Anyway, I don't know what happened to that because I didn't have a team yet. I found a note in September 9th, 1994. The art list is still generic fantasy. We hadn't decided on a genre. It had things like crossbows and swords and medieval armor and very generic environments like forests and desert and grasslands and caves. So in the fall of 94, I wanted to open the game development. Now I wasn't allowed to, so that's when I did my I'm going to say I'm having pizza in an empty conference room in the evening, and anybody who wants to come by can do it. I was surprised at how few people came by, but turns out, in hindsight, I got very motivated people because they were willing to come on their own time to do this. During the second meeting, that's when we started to elaborate on that crazy dinosaur time travel setting, the one with spaceships and dinosaurs and wizards and religious cults. Several people liked it, but it was really complicated, so we cut it back to just an alien one. And we talked a lot about that setting on a future Earth that had been invaded by aliens. Humans were hiding in shelters all over the world. After discussion for that, and I think at this point is when I talked to Scott Campbell, because I'm like, I dreamed about these vaults after an apocalyptic war. We liked the destroyed Earth setting, but we weren't big fans of the aliens, so we went post-apocalyptic. I suggested we keep the vault idea because it let the player and the characters both were on the same page. They knew very little about what the world was like. On December 8th, 1994, it's the first mention of Junktown and that Jason Taylor and Jason Anderson were officially assigned to my team. So that was the team, me and the two Jasons. Tom Decker was removed from it because he already had so many other projects that Alan Pavlish, the executive producer, said he did not have time to do another one. I think Tom had like 22, 24 product SKUs. So I was now a producer. Yes, you will notice that I got an extra title. There was no extra pay, nothing like that. Just, hey, here's some extra responsibility for you. However, between the Jasons and I, we put together some prototype levels, like walking around on the map, some simple melee combat, opening containers and removing loot from it. One of those prototype levels is on the CD-ROM of Fallout. If you have it, it's in a folder called Demo. Someone named Gizmo Junk posted this video on YouTube, so you can kind of see what it's like. It's very primitive, but it's the sprite engine in its earliest form. January 2nd, 1995, we're now into 95, that's when I came up with my original idea for the Fallout story. I talk about it in a video called Original Intro Story. It's linked below. On May 22nd, 95, Alan Pavlish, the VP of Development, said he wanted voice actors in the game and asked me for a feasibility analysis. In June 12th of 95, the project was now official and had assigned team members, like I mentioned before. So Brian Fargo told me I had to start coming to the regular off-site producer meeting, as well as write a vision statement for the project. I wrote multiple vision statements, all of which he hated. It culminated in Chris Taylor writing one in January of 96 that I talked about in the Design Pillar video linked below. Meanwhile, back in 95, in June 21st, 95, it was confirmed we were going to do voice actors. Here's a picture of the people assigned to the project. This is mid-95. I'm not sure exactly when. Let's say summer 95. Left to right, it's Brian Frymuth, Leonard Barsky, Jesse Reynolds, me, Jason Taylor, Scott Campbell, who's seated, Jason Anderson, Michael Dean, and Fred Hatch. On August 2nd, the decision was made by people above me that this game would be Windows 95. And I have a little note saying Steve Jackson Games was not happy about that decision. However, I pointed out that because I was writing it all for GNOME, we could keep the DOS one as an extra SKU, and it wasn't a lot of extra work. It was a little extra work. August 16th, 95, Jesse Reynolds and I, we were switched over to Stonekeep to help it ship, so we lost some time. But that is when Scott Rodenheiser joined our project to do the clay heads for many of the NPCs. August 30th, 95, Chris Jones began the Windows 95 port of GNOME. He did it in 3 weeks, which made a Windows 95 version of the game to be immediately playable, and a full version was completed within 6 months. On September 6th, 95, Scott Campbell gave his 2-week notice. We talked about that in my chat with him. I started negotiating immediately to get Chris Taylor as soon as Stonekeep shipped. On September 3rd, 1995, we moved from the Fitch building to a new temporary building on Alton until we moved into our final place on Von Carmen. The team list was, because I had to, as a producer, I had to be responsible for the move. My team list was Leonard Barsky, Michael Dean, Jason Anderson, me, Fred Hatch, Jason Taylor, Jesse Reynolds, Chris Jones, Brian Frymuth, and Arlene Summers, who is a 2D artist. She did a lot of our button sprites. October 11th, 95, Helena Wickberg joined the team. The total size of the team was now 11 people. Marco Green was listed as my supervisor, not Fergus. Fergus was still a producer at that point. But GURPS was not part of his D&D division, so he supervised me separately. So I didn't go to his D&D director meetings. He and I just had office hours on our own. November 13th, 95, we made a Fallout demo just for internal play. This is not a demo that we shipped in April of 97. Alan Pavlich thought it ran too slow. Fargo, though, loved it. He especially loved the death animations. I remember he called that out. We set our proposed ship date to be November 1996. We did not make that. January 15th, 96, I went to a pet store and bought a pet emperor scorpion that I named Spud and gifted it to the team as our team mascot. Spud lived under a little log in a fish tank in Fred Hatch's office. He dined on crickets that we caught around my house and the yard or bought at the pet store. It was pretty gruesome. I think many of the artists looked at it. He might have been an inspiration for the Rad Scorpions. January 23rd, 1996, the current team was me, Fred, Jesse Reynolds, Chris Jones, Chris Taylor, Brian Frymuth, Leonard Barsky, Jason Anderson, Michael Dean, and Gary Plattner. So we gained someone and lost a couple other people. But then in January 29th, 96, Scott Everts and Nick Kesting joined. February 96, at an offsite producer meeting, that's when I gave the talk on how to manage a team effectively. There's a YouTube video, I'll link it below. January 13th, 96, we slipped our ship date to February 13th, 1997. We wouldn't make that one either. This was because we had to redo all the estimates to do 3D artwork. It was my first 3D game. It was taking a lot of extra time. Leonard tried to make up for it by putting in weekends of work, but even that couldn't make up for it. So we ended up saying there's no way we're shipped before the end of 96. We also started the GURPS Mac Fallout. There weren't any current plans for the project, but Wheeze mentioned he wanted to hire a programmer to do it. Wheeze is Bill Dugan. We called him Wheeze back then. He was a Mac producer. So I told him as long as a programmer gets hired before April of 96, it should be doable. March 26, 96, Mark Morgan was hired to do ambient music. Great hire. May 10th, 96, sometime between October of 95 and this date, Marco Green was removed as director and Ferg was the new director. The Mac version had been approved, but we still had no programmer. Chris DeSalvo, though, on his own time, over a weekend, made a Mac version of Gnaw, so we could at least have a version that ran on the Mac. We made an E3 demo that was interactive and self-playing. It had 2 maps. It showed off most of the cool features like talking and bartering and killing people and finding neat stuff. There was a mini adventure where the players asked to kill some rad scorpions in exchange for some items, and that was included for people to play the engine, play the demo, and then to test our script engine. July 25th, 96, we made an intro movie. It was modeled and rendering began on it. We tried to get the rights to I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire because we thought it fit the intro, and Fred Hatch started looking into the legal rights. Just so you know, didn't get them. We planned to enter the recording studio in a couple weeks. We brought in Marco Green to rewrite a lot of the dialogue that was going to be spoken. Because it turns out written dialogue can be really cool, but once it's spoken, it doesn't sound as good. He rewrote it in an amazing way and in an amazing amount of time to make it sound good spoken. I wrote at this point, the actual design and implementation of the maps is going more slowly than anticipated. We built a demo for ECTS, which was a conference back then, and we prepared for Editor's Day, and we had a ton of delays for that. I wrote to marketing and said, look, I understand the need for these, but we need to schedule these from the beginning. You can't just keep throwing the requests for demos at me. Just so you know, they kept throwing requests for demos at me. I wrote that not only are our tasks to make the game becoming more complicated and need a lot more team communication, but my coding time had now dropped to about 60% of the time during the week. I was trying to make it up by coming in on the weekend, and it dropped way below half before the game shipped. Here is a picture, a group photo in middle of 96. Not 100% sure. I think it came from the webpage. August 21st, 1996, Fred is still working on getting the rights for the song. We wanted I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire, but we couldn't seem to get the rights without very extensive legal work and royalty payments. So we looked into other songs, and we really liked Maybe. I think Gary Plattner found that one. Fred and I met with Jamie Thomason on August 11th to do our voice directing. He could access incredible voice talent, and I wrote down, he's really professional and incredibly easy to work with, and he can get us some top name talent. So I submitted a budget and it got approved. So we made a non-interactive demo, i.e. a movie, for CGW's anniversary CD-ROM. It holds GURPS up as a spiritual successor to Wasteland, GURPS Fallout. And that's how it appears on the CD. The speed at which the demo was put together is a credit to Fred Hatch. He did the whole thing. He picked scenes. He edited it, and video editing software back then was a mess. But he did it all. So, September 11th, 1996, voice recording began. Chris Taylor and Fred Hatch handled most of the studio work, going up there for every session, but I went up 1 week to watch David Warner, who was the ultimate evil for Time Bandits, do one of the characters. I also managed that same week to get a lot of interface into Starfleet Academy's sound code, so suddenly Fallout had sound. That was John Price's sound code, but I gave him Ganal to run Starfleet under, and so he gave me back his sound code, and boom, everybody's happy. Also, we finally got a programmer for the Fallout Mac version, Tim Hume, who I went to graduate school with, and he now worked at Obsidian. He began cleaning up Mac Ganal and the code, and he was going to share that code with Starfleet Academy so they could have a Mac version too. November 11th, 96, we got a lot of comments from QA on our pre-alpha, and we changed things around based on it. We scrapped instant combat. We used to have a button just saying resolve combat, and boom, it would run through really quickly without any graphics, the combat, and it would just end and show you what happened. We got rid of that, but we left in the auto combat. We had a button for just saying, hey, if you don't want to fight, the game will fight for you. I think we scrapped that. November 25th, 1996, we started making an alpha. That was ready on December 16th. We had the opening movie in. You could make a character. You could travel the world map. The music was in. Some sound effects were in. Several towns were in. The isometric maps for them and some dungeons, caves, and a vault. Some cutscenes were in. And we even had one of the digitized heads working. So this was an alpha to just show off all these features. In early 97, I sent the opening cinematic to Steve Jackson Games. This opening cinematic was almost identical to the one that shipped. They did not like it. They had real trouble with some elements of it. I remember they didn't like the part where the guy was getting shot in the head. And they hated Vault Boy in no uncertain terms and demanded changes. This caused a lot of turmoil because, keep in mind, we're now well past the original ship dates, and I've committed to a ship date that fall. So, February 17th, 1997, Steve Jackson showed up in person at Interplay. He's in the front lobby. Brian Fargo and Fergus Urquhart both declined to meet with him, so I talked to him. He and I talked for 6 hours. I'm not going to go into detail other than to say we didn't really reach any resolution. There were changes he really wanted that I was not empowered to agree to. So I'm sure it was frustrating for him that the people who were empowered to do it wouldn't talk to him, and he could only talk to me, but that's what it was. So, after he left, had a lot of meetings. They asked how hard it would be to remove GURPS. It was all modular. Removed it. My next note is March 3rd, 1997. Remember, Steve Jackson was there on February 17th. My next note is March 3rd. And it says, the game is entirely non-GURPS now and has been for over a week. Full conversion to special is thanks to Chris Taylor for having his fast design and also our modular code. That's the last thing we're going to talk about. Also, here's a photo of the team in early 97. Later in March 17th, 97, I wrote, the interactive demo has been in QA for a week now. They've discovered a lot of bugs, but also suggestions for new features. April 15th, 97, we ran into eReg, that's electronic registration issues. It was supposed to be a drop-in. It was not a drop-in. Dan Spitzley, a programmer at Obsidian, and later I worked with him at, a programmer at Interplay, and later I worked with him at Obsidian, saved the day and got eReg working. April 28th, 97, the interactive Windows 95 demo got put up on the web, the Interplay's website. The response was amazing. It was tremendous. It was overwhelmingly positive. Everybody was super excited. That same week, we got the license for Maybe. So we're going to put that in the game. April 12th, 97, the demo continued to do well. We stopped estimating the downloads. We didn't have an actual download timer or ticker. Also, many sites picked up the demo, but we knew it was past 100,000 copies were being played. And that doesn't even include the Mac version, which went up a week later. One thing that concerned me greatly, though, was at this point I received a suggestion from the Interplay UK office for significant changes to the game, to the violence level, to the presence of children, to which I responded, when a product is 8 weeks from being finished, we didn't ship in 8 weeks, and changes are coming in, this is not the time to look at the design for the first time. Our design documents have existed for over 2 years, but no one said anything until now. So I kind of yelled at people way over my station. Anyway, I think what we ended up doing, we made, we took kids out. No, we didn't. We left the kids in. I don't remember what we did, but I don't care. May 27th, 1997, I wrote Good News and Bad News. The good news is, thanks to Mark Harrison's implementation of sound compression using Paul Edelstein's sound compression code, Fallout now fits on one CD. Yes, I was about to go to the people above me and go, we need 2 CDs, and that was expensive. So we got Fallout to fit on one CD. The bad news was we were having tons of problems with scripts. They weren't loading and saving correctly. They were losing variables. They were corrupting memory. It was a mess. So June 24th, 97, I started sending 3 new Fallout revisions to QA every week instead of just the one. I used to send them one a week because it took about 40 hours to play. Now I sent them one every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I wanted to get a faster turnaround on the bugs. We also sent a revision for each of the 3 major platforms, Windows 95, Mac, and DOS. This is when QA started coming in on the weekend, even though some of them weren't paid. They just came in because they wanted to play. Awesome group. Windows 95, they reported as very stable, and they can get to the end game. The Mac was reported as very stable, but has memory fragmentation. It can be played to the end game, barely, but it reported a lot of memory issues. DOS was very unstable. It crashed, memory fragmentation occurred. The extra crashes in DOS we traced to sound code. Basically, someone in QA mentioned, hey, if I disable sound in the DOS version, all the crashes go away. So we searched through and looked for that. Here's where things get interesting, because people often ask me, well, when did you ship? September 30th, 1997, a build was sent to the duplicator, but that day QA found a bug. We fixed it, we retested it, October 1st, 1997. The final build was made, tested, and sent to the duplicator. October 7th, 1997. Reports were coming in from people on the internet saying they've actually seen the game for sale in US stores. But it wasn't until October 9th, because we started going to stores ourselves, October 9th, 1997, team members on Fallout confirmed finding the game for sale in local game stores. However, despite people telling me they saw it early and us actually seeing it early, October 10th, 1997 was the official release of Fallout. Now, we did patches, Fallout 2 started, but I've already talked for 23 minutes, 24 minutes, so I'm going to stop here. Anyway, I hope you all like that. I will link videos below. That is as close to as I can come from my notes to a pretty definitive Fallout timeline. I hope you liked it.